Mr. S. Chakraborty leading it, and Varinia, Tinga, Vikki Bolam, Numanath, Poudel, Arun, Nalavadi, Gayatri, Lobo, Barry Johnson, and Onaka. Okay, would you like to please put some energy for this panel and applaud for them? I shall be extremely thankful if you can applaud for them generously. Answer it. Should I leave you alone with the audience and you? It'll be a wonderful thing to happen if I do that. Okay.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bhatia. Well, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to you. I take this as an honor to, I don't know how to put it, but I would take it as an honor to introduce the panel in front of you for a discussion which enterprises my thought process at a very personal level, innovative approaches in CSR. And with corporate social responsibility gaining momentum, exploration and excavation of ideas is going on continuously. I will not have any specific protocol to go to, so we'll run it as a conversation and then we'll open the floor up for this. So no time limit. If any one of you has to make a presentation, anyone who has a presentation to make? Okay, so we can have a conversation, we can put our views across on the topic, and you can have your time to put your thoughts across. So are we all in agreement with that to go through? Okay, fine. So ladies and gentlemen, I would like you to please give a big round of applause to the panel here who is sitting, and please be big enough to give that round of applause. Thank you. With the onset of the mechanism of corporate social responsibility in this part of the world, now we got to understand the dynamics of how it functions. Corporate social responsibility is not a very new phenomenon in the West. The West has certainly, to a certain extent, understood that corporate social responsibility cannot be alienated as a social responsibility of the corporates. They, in fact, have embedded within the systems, or at least they're making an effort to amalgamate in their systems in such a way that they call it corporate responsibility. It's a challenge. It's a challenge because I remember the words of Henry Ford Jr., who said that businesses have an inherent capacity to deliver social imperatives because they always function in a constrained financial and administrative environment. I do feel that the best innovative ideas comes when you have a constraint on policy, you have a constraint on finance, on natural resources, on human resources, and so on. This is the generation which is actually at a very, very thin line, which is going to decide on grounds of social responsibility and sustainability of what you're going to hand over to your kids, to the next generation, and what are they going to inherit. It becomes a challenge when we, in this constrained environment, when we have to implement certain issues of social responsibility, newer ideas have to germinate. You have to look and figure out the tree in the seed, and the seed has to be sown today for the generations to come. This is where I open the complete forum to all of you. I will start, I was having a discussion with Barry while having a tea, and he came across one of the best proverbs that I have ever heard in my life, to be very frank, ladies and gentlemen, that you got to actually transform CSR from enforcement to engagement. And as long as this transition doesn't happen, the polarity of thoughts will stand where it is. And I'm 100% sure, and I'll open the forum up with Barry to speak first, as to what is his thoughts on trying to solve what is solvable and to keep out what is not. And how do you maintain that transition together?
Thank you. Um, so what we do in our organization, Polarity Partnerships, is essentially work with any organization that we have the privilege to work with to start by identifying two classes of issues that they have to deal with. One are issues that are problems to solve and to support them in solving those problems. But we also are paying attention to what are those issues that are inherently unavoidable and unsolvable. And if you treat a polarity or a paradox or a dilemma, it's called different things in the literature, but these are issues that are inherently unavoidable and unsolvable. And if you treat them as if they're a problem to solve, you're in trouble from that point forward. And so a couple of examples of how this distinction works at the global level. When we look at the issue of global warming, for example, that's a problem to solve. A problem to solve as to whether humans are contributing to global warming, whether global warming is taking place, and the degree to which humans are contributing to it. That's a problem to solve. There's an underlying polarity in relation to global warming that is inherently unsolvable, and that's the natural tension between focusing on national interests and focusing on the environment. The reason that China and the United States did not sign the Kyoto Agreement, for example, is because it was identified as not in the national interest, as if you could choose between national interest and environmental interests. But what I'm suggesting is that is a polarity of interdependency, where it is always in the national interest to take care of those things beyond the national interest, including the environment. So what we're about helping people do is make this distinction between problems you can solve and polarities that you need to leverage. You can't solve them, but you can leverage them. And so rather than see it as a choice that you have to choose, it's actually a false choice, but something that you can, I believe that you can leverage.
Hello, yeah. When it comes to specifically objective-oriented initiatives in CSR, I would like to come to Arun in that. Now, you have run a specific kind of a mechanism successfully for some time. This audience wants to know, Arun, 3 things that you would advise us to be ready for when you're looking at innovation in CSR. 3 challenges.
Yeah. I guess when you talk about innovation, the first thing which comes in the mind and it's linked to a CSR is CSR itself is in a very early days of metaphorism. And here we are talking about innovation. So aren't we talking to an early stage? But I think this is a very, very apt time to talk about innovation, because CSR is a game changer. Even if before I go into your question, just let me give you my thoughts. CSR is, of course, a game changer. We are in actually a paradox today, because on one hand, the NGOs know that really they have been involved in changing the social fabric, and they believe that the change can happen. Many of them have started some of this program with a certain amount of conviction, and they have come to a certain point where they said, okay, I can do better, but I really don't know what more to do. So on one hand, there is this whole situation which exists. On the other hand, we have the corporates who have, as you rightly said in the morning, been forced into this whole CSR thing. Some of them, of course, have been doing it for many years, like 50 years plus, but some of them have been forced to do it now. And now they have no much choice but to do it, because it's not only the CSR law which is forcing them to do it, but also the investors, global investors are saying, here is CSR, and that's an important part of the sustainability, and you really need to do it. And it's at the board level, so they are also grappling in how they need to do this. So a situation exists today where there are 2 forces. One is saying he's pushed to do, another one is saying I have done, but I can do better. I really don't know how much to do. And I think this is where I think the whole collaborative framework comes into picture. And if we really are able to create a nice, good framework through forums like this, it'll really go a long way to not only get the corporates to do CSR because, as the previous speaker said, it's very profitable for the business, but also it will make a real solid impact in our own country, which is the need of the hour. And that's where innovation comes in. And I'm very, very hopeful that this will happen because if you really see all the Indian corporates which are today thriving, when the economy was opened up in 81, 82, all of them were very, very scared because they were all India-centric, they were not global-centric, and then didn't even know whether they were going to exist. But they innovated in their business processes, they innovated in their mindset, and I think most of them today are a sort of going global, meeting up the competition with multinational services in India, and they believe that innovation is the key to survival, innovation is the key to sustain the business, and they have succeeded in doing that in their own organization, and they know how to do it. So this conviction, if they are able to bring it in a foreplay to the CSR, which they know is now the need of the hour, I think it's a wonderful meeting ground. Everybody will gain. The NGOs will, when you collaborate with a corporate, I work to an NGO, but I used to work in a corporate. I always say to a corporate, when I meet you, I don't come for a grant. I come here because you are able to build capacity in my organization. You are able to help me to innovate and make my programs more sustainable, and in a sense, you will also get a payback. So this movement is now there, and I'm sure a lot of organizations will push the NGOs to innovate through capacity building, and I think this is a great time for all of us here who are sitting in this audience to carry back this message that the NGOs per se are also ready with a change mindset to get inputs and do this innovation. Having said that, so the first message is let us collaborate to innovate. And I think the corporates have it within them to get the NGOs to innovate. So that's my first message. The second message is that there is a need for innovation in the development sector. There hasn't been too much of, there is a lot of passion in the development sector. There is no doubt about this. There is a lot of commitment in the development sector. There is no doubt about it, but what it does lack is processes. It does lack processes to scale up a successful program. It does lack a larger element of innovation, which today is the need of the hour, whether you really want to. So there's so much of innovation can do in sanitation. Crores of rupees are being spent, but I'm sure, like our Luke King here, he could, a better technology would really, bring so much of sense. And there are so much of examples. So the third element is, amongst the solar, third message, so this is my second message, is that there is a need and the NGOs are absolutely ready. The third element is the NGO community itself, or the development sector community itself. There are a lot of examples of innovation. Absolutely a lot of it. One of the things which I am so very, take for example volunteering. We all know volunteering is good. Volunteering, makes a lot of stuff happen. But if you just change volunteering to mentoring, and that's innovation. That brings the return on investment to 10 times. And no better example than, my colleague who is sitting here from Teach for India. And absolutely they have innovated. For example, I work in Magic Bus. What we did, which allowed us to scale up this program to, let's say, 50 states and about 75 districts, is we just innovated and said, we will, for our program, use youths from the same community to deliver our program. That small innovation. For first 7 years, we were only in Mumbai. We were scared to go outside because we do conviction building in children. And we didn't know how do you get these permanent resources. But we innovated. And we said, we will use youth from the community to deliver the program. And we created a backend to make sure that they're efficient. So this is another good example of how even within the NGO sector, there are innovations which have been done and they have been successful. The challenge is to create that conviction in the NGO that you need to innovate, and innovation will result into a larger impact for you and a larger scale of play for you. So those are my 3 messages.
Right. And one of the things I think the core issue is, as far as you look at India, any innovative model, unless and until it has got scalability embedded in it, it is going to not run for a long period of time. This is one of the, and you rightly referred, who better than Gayatri to talk about how did you scale it up? So Gayatri, your prescription to the audience here to tell them that, look, be ready for this, but don't stop, just innovate. And because you have put it front as a positive case study, if you can throw the lessons that you have learned and the challenges that you've got.
Thank you. Thank you, Arun, for setting this up. So I work for an organization called Teach for India, and we started 5 years ago with about 80 teachers who we recruited from some of the best colleges and corporates in the country to give up their careers and actually come and teach full-time in under-resourced schools, both government schools and also private schools that are catering to children from underprivileged families. When we started off, I think one of the key focus areas we had was just to strengthen the program. We realized at that point, if we go across and get many, many funders and start talking externally a lot about what we do, we will get distracted. So instead, just strengthen the program, look at how to almost make Teach for India in a box, which can then be replicated across different states and can have the same impact without, one of the big dangers of scale is dilution of quality. True. And that was something that we were very, very careful of. So while we actually, and I'm very honestly saying, we had more ambitious plans than we were actually able to meet. But what we were very confident of is that we will not lower the bar of who gets in as Teach for India Fellow, because that will kill all scale, all possible growth that we are looking to get. For us, when you look at innovation, we're looking at it from different perspectives. But one of the biggest barriers of scale is, two of the biggest barriers are people and funds. On the people front, we've been lucky. We've got some really great people working at Teach for India, both as fellows and on staff. On the funding side, again, we've been lucky. I'm not saying we've not, but we've looked at innovative ideas, innovative ways in which we can engage with our donors, with both corporates as well as individuals, and how we can keep them as sustained donors across every year, bring them back in, make them feel part of the Teach for India family, Teach for India movement that we're trying to create, and also look at innovative ideas from across the world that we could possibly replicate. I just want to share with you one of the things I'm dying to do, and if anyone can help me here, it'll be great. An idea that I actually heard about from UNICEF, that they tied up with Disney. Now, Disney could have just given them a grant. Instead, what Disney said is that we will offer any individual who donates $10 to UNICEF an opportunity to win a prize, and that prize was to act in the next Star Wars film. Now, Star Wars is huge, right? So for $10, you could possibly win a 2-minute or something cameo in a next Star Wars film. They raised in 2 months $4.6 million. So that innovation, just that donation that they could have otherwise made, they used that to actually generate far more funds for UNICEF. So anyone from Disney or any other company or who wants to talk to me, please let me know. But just like ideas like this are so wonderful and so easy to implement.
One of the things is that this is out-of-the-box innovation. I don't know whether I can call it cost-related marketing, but it is, yes, to a certain extent, it is that way. And I don't see any hesitation in accepting that, yes, it's much more honest, transparent in the very nature of the funding that it is. I'll specifically now come to Numanath. Social responsibility, microfinance in India taking a beating, microfinance being labeled as not being socially responsible, and then now the whole discussion on CSR. Do you have a perception, do you have an imagination which tells you, provided the microfinance companies would have looked at CSR before engaging, they would have been more sustainable in the business in the long run? And if yes, then how to clear the road ahead?
Before going into microfinance, I would like to talk a little bit about innovation. Innovation is not always about finding new thing, doing new way of doing things, or finding the new solutions to the social problems. It is about providing solution for the first time to the people. If some part of India or some part of other countries having a drinking water problem and nobody has gone there, nobody has really done anything before, and some organization or some people are starting to provide real solution to them. That is innovation for them. The people who get services, social solution to the problem for the first time, people who provide such solutions for the first time is innovation for themselves. It is innovation in itself. So innovation is not finding a different way all the time, but our mind requires new thing. It is our nature of human nature to go a different way, and we don't find a taste in doing same thing again and again. So we need innovation. Regarding microfinance, microfinance initially intended for low-income people providing services. It was also considered as a poverty alleviation tools in research, and it is a controversial issue. Discuss whether it is really contributing something or miserable or really contributing to the GDP or not. There was a different school of thought. There was a research showing against the finding, or earlier school of thought about it really contributes to the poverty reduction or not. It may be disputed and debated for a longer time than we have available. There are so many organizations, rather than going for the microfinance, it is intent of the organization, attitude of the people working behind it, really that serves the social service business or social responsibility or inclusive business is a part of, microfinance is a part of the corporate social responsibility itself. If intent behind establishment of organization itself is a profit making, the same social issue becomes a business rather than social responsibility. It becomes only business, profit making business. So rather than drinking water solution or any social issue as a problem or business case or business idea or innovation, it is intent of the business. It is design of the business. It is motive of the business that makes whether microfinance is really working towards the solution or it is exploitation of something like profit-making vehicle for the company. Recently, I'll cite some example from Nepal. Rather than I'll focus on India issues. I'm not familiar with the India issue except Andhra Pradesh case, that is already history. Rather than digging out the old past histories and past stories, we can focus on future. Central Bank of Nepal, yesterday only, I was sitting here only and I was reading the news that Central Bank of Nepal is going to curtail the limit on dividend or profit distribution from microfinance institution. Microfinance institution will be restricted to distribute dividend to the shareholder from next year and onwards, like that. There should be regulation also. There should be some provisions also, how social service business or business related business intended for the benefit of the poor people or target deprived people or low income people or underprivileged group can be used, how much it can be termed as a intended for, for example, directed lending by government, directed lending by central bank, and other purposes, CSR, and other purposes also. It depends. It is contextual thing. Maybe it is really the Central Reserve Bank of India also put some cap on interest, and there is a self-regulatory organization, SRO, as AMFIN coming into the picture, and they are doing good in India also. We have to learn from the case of the India also. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much. I'll come back to you in the later half of the discussion. Now, Varinia, talking about CSR, Asia growing up, emerging markets coming up, what ramification do you see from an external affairs point of view? How do you actually look at it from the external point of view? How much do you relate that this phenomena is now coming from the West, but the West is also learning from our experiences, from innovations here. How is the West capitulating it? We saw some great stories today from the morning, but what is your take on it? How from an external affairs point of view, you look at it as this evolution to be born here and to be taken there?
I think innovation is something that should be welcomed by all, and that sharing, I think, of best practices is something that we should all be working for, and this is exactly a laboratory. This forum is exactly one such laboratory to show that this is possible. Right. From the corporate point of view, we are always on the lookout for innovations that we can shamelessly borrow, and I think this is something that should be universally shared, so that we can all profit from what our friends from Asia or in different areas, we can all profit from what they have learned and what they have experienced, and use it in our own enterprises, in our endeavors to make it more successful. What my takeaway is from all the discussions that I have witnessed in the last few days, my takeaway is that CSR, to be innovative and to be more meaningful to all the stakeholders, it has to be in the nexus, a kind of a connection for all the interests of the stakeholders to be considered and taken into account into the decisions made on CSR initiatives.
Right. Now, there was a purpose why I came to you the last. And the purpose was one simple statement. Do you think all these views actually lead to creating shared value? And does shared value picture look like this of what we have spoken? Has innovation got a space in shared value mechanism, and how?
Wow. No, absolutely. And just to share our story, most of you won't know of LIXIL. Most people in Japan don't know of LIXIL. But we're actually a $16 billion company with over 80,000 employees. We're not known overseas yet, but one way that we intend to be known is through building a brand of meaning. And my mission is to ensure that that's based on what we're calling CSV at the moment, creating shared value. Before I get to answering your question, one of the reasons actually we came up with CSV is because I actually didn't want it to be called CSR. I actually do not like the word CSR. So if we're going to have a conference again, I'd strongly suggest changing the name, because I think we're missing a massive opportunity. Well, I think everybody's got very different ideas of what CSR is. When I joined LIXIL 2.5 years ago, I was thrown into brand and CSR. I didn't have a background in it, but I was very excited because I'd experienced Standard Charter's Seeing is Believing campaign, and I was very moved by it. But the CSR in LIXIL at the time was very much focused on the environmental side, and it was governance. And I thought, this is a massive company, and we just have a lot of auditors crunching data about the environment, which is very important, but it is what it is. It's responsibility. Of course we're responsible. How many of you out there want to be irresponsible companies? Nobody does. So I think we should at least change, sitting here listening to the last 2 days, my first thing is let's change CSR to at least CSO, which is corporate social opportunity, because that's what we're all talking about. We're talking about opportunities. And I think to get us there, to answer your question, we do need innovation. And it's just because there are problems which haven't been solved. So if we don't solve them, it doesn't have to be new innovation, as my colleague has said. It could be going back to basics. It could just be another way around things. Just to give you an example, LIXIL has joined what's called my Ecolu colleagues over there, but something called the Toilet Board Coalition. And it was launched last year on World Toilet Day. And it is LIXIL, which is a toilet maker, Unilever, which is the detergent maker, and it's Kimberly-Clark, which is the toilet paper maker, and Firmenich are the current four main companies. And they're a odor, either control or perfume maker company. And we are collaborating on an innovation together because we realize if we can put us all together in the innovation stage, we are likely to understand much better. I mean, we can make toilets which are odorless, which are waterless, but how are we going to clean them? So if we want to make them, eco-friendly, really eco-friendly, have organic fertilizer from them, then we need to be talking to Unilever now about make us a detergent that adds to the organic process. Make us, Kimberly-Clark, make us a toilet paper which adds to the composting process. So I think that's a great example of how corporates could come together, but we also have funders in the organization as well. So if we're looking for entrepreneurs in the area to come forward with a good business model that can take to scale, and we'll also support from a technology perspective or from a business consulting perspective, because all of us, we want to see more toilets in the environment for that area. So to get to creating shared value, I think a lot of places aren't there yet, so we do need innovation. But again, it's just, for corporates going forward, let's say that CSR is a given. Let's say sustainability is a given. Because again, who wants to set up a company that's going to be out of business in 3 or 4 years because it's used up all of its resources or it's burnt all of its wood products or whatever? I mean, again, nobody's going down that route. But to really, I think, stand out as a company should be looking at what real value can give to the organization. So again, from my perspective, even though LIXIL is much, much more than toilets, we're about all of the household products, apart from the cement of the walls. When I looked at what LIXIL could do, high on the social agenda obviously was toilets. We bought American Standard, we bought GrowAir, we're now the biggest company worldwide for plumbing fixtures and fittings. So it was natural that we should look at the toilet situation. But for me, the way to really push a company like LIXIL, which is huge, but is looking at the high-end market, the only way to get them long-term to support this social innovation is to make a business out of it. So I actually have the budget, not R&D. I have the budget to create the new toilet for the urban poor. I have the budget for that. But within a year, I need to prove to the company that it's a true business. And once it's a true business, we're not talking about sustainability. I mean, sustainability is a sustainable business. It will become part of the business portfolio within the business unit. Sure. And then we're just making good products for good business, but creating good in the environment. So again, it's relatively, it sounds simple, it's much more difficult than that, but it does need innovation.
Yeah, and one of the challenges, okay, let's now that we have had introduction round, I face it when we go on to consult companies. Is one of the points is, one, they're not very receptive in this part of the world to understand that, this is not philanthropy, and you got to make a business case out of any CSR initiative. Most of it, they're not ready to accept it that way. They want to limit themselves. How many of you have actually faced this challenge to convince the boards, to convince the promoters to think long-term and invest in the business through social responsibility rather than only just looking at off-written philanthropy? So, Arun, you may start and we may go one by one, all of us. What is the challenge that you face? Because you must be having this challenge to face.
Of course, there is the biggest challenge is that we are forced to do it. Yeah. But I guess once they sit back and understand that this is going to be an opportunity for them, because the board is made of wise people, and once they get over this whole stuff that, this is there for keeps and I need to do something about it. And worse, this is also a board level mandate as per the law. We need to do something about this. So I think the current challenge we are facing is this whole attitude saying we are forced to do about it. So, let's, I don't like it. Okay. But I'm very hopeful because they will very soon gravitate to this situation saying this is an opportunity. I was very surprised because I had this opportunity to address the board of one of our very strategic funders. And I want to share this story with you. We were given about 10 minutes. It was a regular quarterly board meeting. So
You right now have about 1 minute.
Yeah. We were given 3 minutes, and obviously they spent about close to 10 minutes. And each one of them says they were thinking in very long term, saying, how do we, do this very strategically? How will this be a part of the core part of the business? How do we collaborate with the different agencies to do capacity building for them? So the answer to your question is, I have a feeling very strongly that the board is already thinking beyond the word philanthropy, beyond the word forced. They started thinking to say, let's get down, let's talk long term, let's see what we can do. And I think that's given us a lot of hope.
Okay. Now, Barry, your thoughts on it, and is there a perception difference between where you work and here where we work? Do you think there is a contradiction when the board looks at philanthropy as such?
Yes, I would just like to support your comment about changing the name. Matter of fact, I had it written down here as corporate social responsibility as a more accurate picture of what we're talking about. There's an opportunity here, and it's not just doing it because it's politically correct, it's because it's smart. It's smart for the company, and it's smart for the rest of the world. So that combination of you can be both smart and caring, and it is caring to be smart, and it is smart to be caring. And so the notion of, again, the notion of both and, the possibility of doing both, and corporate social opportunity, I think captures that better than the language of responsibility. It's not that there's something wrong with responsibility, but it tends to focus on something that you sort of should do or have to do or forced to do. It's not like it's something in your own interest. It's something that you sort of do for others or something rather than doing for yourself. But corporate social opportunity, there's an opportunity there to make a positive difference in the world in a way that enhances your organization's bottom line.
Numanath, your points on it. Because banking industry, to convince bankers, it takes a banker to convince a banker. Means we face that difficulty every day. To convince them of CSR initiatives and to convince them that there is a business case on it. They do understand, but it takes a lot of time. Why do you think that point is there?
True. It is true. Now I am sitting here. I was invited to a meeting of regulator in Nepal exactly same time, and they are sitting there. I have sent somebody else there. And they are discussing about whether microfinance institution can go for social service business, whether they can finance, whether they can do more than just a business also.
Right.
And central bank regulation. Central bank regulation requires KYC norm. Central bank regulation requires to do certain things that mandatory. Otherwise, they are penalized or they are taken. Central bank takes serious action against banks because they are having fiduciary capacity to take deposits from the public, and they are responsible for maintaining the soundness of the financial sector. And that's why there are so many stringent rules compared to any other sector in banking sector. And I was discussing about financing social service business, and we were requesting central bank to allow us to enter into social service business where the risk is high, where the money may not return back as intended initially to be repaid or returned back, to the investor or to the lenders. And we wanted them to consider some of the relaxation or some of the arrangement or some of the new provisions to be made. It is long process to convince them day to day. It is not like one shot go or counseling or mentoring as immediate things to happen. But how it happens is, if central bank regulation is removed, I asked this question to association chairman of Nepal, banker association chairman. If central bank removes all the regulation as of today, what you will do? He said, we will do all the things, we will continue to do things that does not increase cost and that does not reduce the profit. It is regulation that requires something, some financial literacy, capacity building of clients, and client protection principle is also there by the central bank. Regulation requires them to go for corporate social opportunity. Now I'm using the word corporate social opportunity because this one really reflects the true sense, true essence of this seminar also. And social service business, there were few people who wanted to start the social service business, providing employment and providing solution to the social problem. For example, a cleaning of river started in Nepal, where they did not collect any money from any volunteers, but thousands of people gathered together. They were sending SMS, they were taking help of other people who contributed to the spreading the message, and it was awarded Asian Township Award by the cleaning themselves. Some of the groups, companies also involved, but they wanted to start social service business. They approached us. They approached some of other bankers, but we were unable to fund them despite our individual interest to fund them. We were friend of them also. But central bank regulations say loan officers or the signatories to the agreement denied, because in the case loan becomes bad, central bank regulation is so stringent that they have to go to jail. The people who signed on loan agreement, around 400 people are inside jail now because they failed to assess properly and bank failed, and they are held responsible for this. So it is not only intention of bankers, it is regulation and regulators' intention also. Maybe there are so many limitations.
Right. Varinia, you must have faced challenges, you must have assessed challenges that have come when innovation and social responsibility or social opportunity was there. Do you have any example to share with the audience where your policy or your regulatory mechanisms helped innovation to grow for evaluating responsibility with an opportunity?
Thank you. I have to admit that I had a very strange, weird situation because internally, I work for PMFTC, Inc. It's an affiliate of Philip Morris International. It used to be very different during meetings with our regional offices. CSR used to be identified as pure altruism, and for them, that meant giving the money to an NGO, and that about defined the extent of our participation. Okay. They found us very strange in our affiliate because we were insisting, I think it's an innovation on their part, that all projects under CSR or CSO should dovetail with business objectives. And this is what we have been doing on our own in our country. We have tried to marry the objectives of the business with that of the community's needs, where we do business. And we talk about social services. For us, the chosen areas of giving used to be very defined, like art, education, domestic violence, and disaster preparedness and rehabilitation. and environment, as my colleague here mentioned. We have managed to marry the objectives of the several sectors and stakeholders. By way of example, as you ask, one project that we have on environment, what we did was we organized farmers' organizations because in our industry, the biggest raw material that we use is tobacco leaf. Okay. So we have like 50,000 farmers all over the country. It was a huge problem. It became a huge problem for us because a lot of these farmers were indiscriminately cutting trees in order to cure the tobacco leaf. So no amount of education would work. What we did by way of incentive and to encourage them to be more socially aware and environmentally aware was that we organized these groups into like 30 farmers organizations in 30 provinces, gave them seed money, and asked them to grow and maintain fuel wood plantations. Okay, so at the first 3 years, we asked our NGO partners to monitor in order to help them improve the sustainability of the plantations. But after that, they're pretty much on their own because after 3 years, the seedlings will be more or less growing already. So what we did also was we gave these people a source of livelihood. So empowerment, livelihood trainings, so they are empowered to create other sources of income. Like they were now aware of planting fruits or vegetables in those plantations, so they were able to generate income from those. And it came to a point that these organizations on their own started lending also to their members. And what we did when we saw that these organizations have matured, by way of incentive, we gave them additional funding, infused them additional capital in order for them to grow bigger. So right now, I'm happy to say that we have maintained plantations in like almost 200,000 hectares. And the very aggressive objective is for us to plant 1 million trees a year in order to be self-sustaining. And we're very happy with the way it has turned out so far.
Okay, great. And you do this with the partnership with NGOs on the ground?
We are using a network of NGOs actually across 30 provinces, and we work with the local governments in those places as well as the national agencies of government in order to ensure success for the initiative.
Right. Now, one of the things, Vikki, that I wanted to know is, you now work very closely with projects to be implemented on the ground, and now you work with boards. You now have to convince the board on a certain line. How much resistance do you get from the boards to make them understand the value beyond monetary creating a value of the creating shared value mechanism?
I think when you're talking about regular CSR, then of course the board was on it because it's a risk aversion. So I think any global listed company is going to implement the CSR. So they're on board for that. When it comes to CSV, at the moment, we are, you're talking about our board of directors, yes. So at the moment, I work out of sales and marketing. So I don't work out of communications, public affairs, and I'm super excited about that. Unfortunately, with an organizational change, they're trying to force me into public affairs, which I'm kicking and screaming around. So at the moment, I'm kind of keeping it actually under the radar because I've managed to convince enough people in the two tiers down that this is what we need to do, this is a big story, this is going to be business. But I'm hoping that we can do it with a little bit of budget internally, but my strategy is actually to get the big budget externally, so it doesn't actually have to go to the board yet. If I needed a big capital injection, the board would need to know. So once it's a viable business, and then we can tell the story, and the board, I think, will be happy to use it as part of the corporate story. But at the moment, it's basically a small business incubation, is how I've positioned it internally. For the philanthropy side, that's slightly different. Again, when I joined LIXIL, it was interesting that the big CSR drive they had at the time was for the employees in Japan to litter pick around the factory on their day off. So you can imagine that was just so bizarre. So within 6 months, I'd managed to implement a program which was to bring improved sanitation in schools to 2,018,000 children by the end of 2018. And that went up to board approval and was signed off. But what I'm kind of interested in that program is the blur between CSR, CSO, social, actual business development, because we began that program, a lot of it's with UNICEF, so we're hands-off, but the part where we're hands-on, and I'm really passionate about companies trying to get hands-on because it does lead to innovation, is in our program in Nairobi, which actually I manage from Tokyo, which is a bit of a nightmare. But we put in eco-sanitation in schools there, and because we did that, the Nairobi government has been interested in us working with them on renovating all of the schools in Nairobi. I'm not sure we're going to do it or not, take them up on the offer. But that shows how a philanthropy project can turn into a business. And I do know that the board is 150% behind that, because not only is it turning into business opportunities, but we also now get the Japanese government and other external funders like JETRO, wanting LIXIL to actually do more social business in those developing countries, because they also have a political agenda. And they see our company being able to help them work on development goals outside in other countries as well. So how it's all linked, I think, is quite interesting.
Right. Gayatri, coming to you, just put yourself in a state of botheration and say that, have you come across funny reactions from companies before contributing money for your just full cause? Funny questions, or just to lighten it up a bit, collaborations within corporations, because there are multiple corporations who are involved with you. Has collaboration between them ever become a challenge for you to galvanize?
I don't actually have an example of collaboration within organizations, but we do get really bizarre requests when it comes to employee engagement, and really strange questions about how much each of us earns. So not very often, but in the beginning when we used to go for fundraising, people would say, okay, but how much of my donation is going to you? And it's not a comfortable question, so it's not a funny question, but it's a strange question that's asked, used to be asked. It's got a lot better now. In terms of employee engagement, again, it's just unusual requests that we get, and you have to often remind them that our objective is not fundraising, our objective is education, and so we're not going to go bend over backwards and do whatever a donor asks if it's going to take away from what the kids are expected to do or expected to learn. So very often we have to bring the conversation back to the reality of what we are here for. So, but by and large, I've been very pleasantly surprised with the kind of people that we've met in this space. I love meeting new people, so I think I'm in the right industry in that sense. But
do you have a feeling, how many of your volunteers, how many of these corporation-backed volunteers, do you feel they come back to you for the specific thing after the time of the volunteering is over?
Yeah, so it's 2 years. It's a full-time paid commitment. So we pay them a salary. It's not voluntary. Yeah. They leave their jobs or they take sabbaticals from their jobs and do this. Yeah. 60% of our alumni, of those who graduated, stay on in the education sector. So they don't actually go back to their corporates.
So you don't have the retention problem.
We don't have a retention problem. We do try and bring some of the best ones into Teach for India, to be honest. But the idea is, how do you fuel really bright minds into the education sector? And I think we've been fairly successful with that.
Brilliant, brilliant. Any other points you want to make before I open the house to the panel?
my personal thought is, it is not the resources, limitation of resources or collaboration or idea or method or process. It is the real intention of people behind it, corporate leaders in the corporates, that what they want to achieve, real intention behind it. For example, in UK, a commercial bank opened an account for a handicapped athlete, star athlete, so that they can capture the news headlines in newspapers. Opening an account is really doesn't count an account, single account, which creates a huge headlines, is not a really a corporate social responsibility. It is marketing strategy only. Real intention behind how it is designed. Designation is secondary. Process is secondary. Innovation is secondary. For example, grandfather account, it can be designed into grandson account very easily. Some kind of changes, and father, grandfather, mother, sister, so many kinds of banking product can be made. I am from banking background, so I am repeating the same word. So rather than innovation in intention and innovation thought process, thinking the thought idea behind, for example, KISS, the transformation takes place into the organization when the thinking process changes into the CROs. From CRS to CRO, only then real innovation happens.
Brilliantly said. Brilliantly said. Barry has a word to put in.
I'm just curious about people in the room, your response to the name issue that you raised about corporate, the possibility of being corporate social opportunity. And I was just thinking it might actually be both. It might be corporate social responsibility and opportunity. So you keep the responsibility piece, but there's also an opportunity here. So you wouldn't let go of that. So I'm just curious about that in terms of what other people are response to that.
We'll get the voting done by the end of this session. But I think Barry is a great fan of and. He does not believe in either or, either way around. Ladies and gentlemen, so the panel is open for questions. If you feel any question that you want to ask to the panel, please name yourself, your organization, and you may direct the panelists to the question. Anybody for the question? Fine. So I think we have been quite concrete enough in establishing our point of view. Yeah. Or, as Gayatri puts it, maybe you're bored to death. So, anyways, we were also involved in it that we didn't realize the fact that I think to a great extent what we discussed made relevance, not only because I'm part of the panel and I have to say it, but the fact is that it touched some of the sensitive issues that I, at a personal level, because I head a company which is into consulting corporations, and these are some topics that are brushed every single day at my desk for work. Because whenever we go out, and believe me, most of these things we have already heard, but every time hearing it and getting that echo in your head, I think relieves you out of that stress to not understand certain aspects of social responsibility. And I do not only want to take accolade for this panel. I think from morning onwards, we do keep hearing these things that we have heard, but every single time we hear it, it leaves an imprint on us. So my accolades and my best wishes to the organizers, along with it to each member of this panel who have shared their views on specific questions. And please be completely assured that none of the panelists actually knew what I'm going to talk to them about. So this was a completely impromptu panel discussion, and that's the most lively part of it, that you keep it more interactive at the end of the day. So thank you very much, every one of you, and thank you to the audience for this great participation on this. Thank you.